founder and artistic director of Red Bull Theater.
And I'm Jim Bredesen, managing director. Thank you for being with us today as our first part of our seminar series, Exploring Othello in 2020.
We designed this series as a portion of our month-long Othello 2020 initiative, part of our ongoing commitment to racial justice and ensuring that our theater is a home for all.
This series of discussions will provide an opportunity for our entire community to explore Othello with BIPOC voices in our current historic moment.
As a theater company devoted to revitalizing the classics with a particular focus on Shakespeare and his Jacobean contemporaries, we are thrilled to provide an occasion and space for a communal online conversation on these important issues.
And we are here to learn and to listen. Thank you for being with us. And now we'd like to welcome Dr. AYANNA Thompson, who will be our guide for this series and this wonderful company.
Thank you so much, Jessie and Jim. It's really an honor to be here. I've had lots of closed doors discussion with BIPOC scholars and artists about Othello, and they've all been remarkably different from the ones that I've had in theater companies with white-run directors and predominantly white casts. I wanted to create a safe space that would allow the artistic and scholarly communities to hear how Othello is grappled with by smart, engaged, and passionate BIPOC artists. More often than not, we have experienced a different play than the one you have experienced. Over the course of the 4 sessions in October, you will get a full reading of Othello by an all BIPOC cast. Each session will feature 45 minutes of reading the text and 25 minutes of discussion among the artists. The final 20 minutes will be reserved to answer questions from you, the audience. Please submit your questions through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and feel free to submit your questions at any point during the reading or discussion, meaning you don't have to wait till the end to post them. Dieris Rhymes, a PhD student from Arizona State University who specializes in the construction of race in 17th century literature, will curate the questions to see if there are overlaps, and they will read them to us during the final Q&A session. And I'd like to introduce the director of our reading, Dawn Monique Williams, who is an accomplished director of contemporary and classical theater. We met virtually in 2015 when we were asked to do a dialogue for a book called The Diverse Bard. It was in that discussion that Dawn informed me that there had never been a major production of Othello directed by a woman of color, and only a few had been directed by men of color. So Dawn, how do you feel that it's 2020 and that still hasn't changed?
Well, my relationship to the play has changed quite a bit, so I understand it. I'm still grossly frustrated with the fact that so few directors of color, and in particular Black directors, have had the opportunity to interpret this text. I think when we talked in 2015, I was really chomping at the bit myself to get another go at it as a director. So my kind of bias was particular towards like, why haven't more Black women been able to do this play? And now I've come around a little bit more to feeling like that, like, probably even before I take another crack at it, I would love to see a few more Black men have the opportunity to interpret this text. Part of that is fueled by my own experience working as dramaturg on the 2018 OSF production, and how that specific production has changed my whole relationship to the play. But also, AYANNA, you have been a tremendous resource to me over the years. And there's a talk you did in particular with Harry, where
Harry
he
Lennox.
talks about no matter what, Othello is always gonna be the creation of a Black man in a white man's imagination, and so there's a danger in doing the play, having anybody interpret the play as written, and so I feel like I'd really love a few more Black men to have their say. I did direct the play in 2014, but like you said, I'm sure any number of people have directed the play, but in terms of major professional production. So I directed the play at a small semi-professional theater here in the San Francisco Bay Area. My dogs are going berserk. And what I realized, I was in 2014, and what I realized was that I was afraid of the play. That I was afraid in that actor reifying any tropes or stereotypes of playing apish, of being perceived as a brute. And so I thought that I ultimately, in that instance, did the play and that actor who played Othello a disservice because of my fear, which was why when we talked in 2015, I was so anxious to get another shot. And then in OSF, we did a very multicultural production, and I was the dramaturg, and I was so proud of us and how we cast it. And it's very metropolitan, much more like Venice would be. And then I realized that that wasn't Shakespeare's worldview when he wrote the play. And so we did that, pats on our back. But I'm not sure we actually did the play any service in doing that, and really trying to integrate other storylines and really trying to make it about like a sense of global anti-Blackness by adding, you know, Middle Eastern actors, Asian actors, Native American, Indigenous actors. Like we really tried to like have a rich metropolitan approach to casting. And I think ultimately it didn't serve. You know, the actor who played the role, Chris Butler, played Othello sublimely. I mean, Chris Butler is a tremendous actor and he did a really great job, but he and I had a conversation, which is on the record and you know, an article that I wrote, so I don't feel like I'm telling tales, where he talked about, he thought that he would get to approach the work as like an American Black man. And then Bill Rauch, the director, wanted Chris to do it as a North African. So Chris did just excellent research and approached it from the standpoint of like, what if he's one of these Sudanese lost boys? And so we deeply invested in that path, and Chris did great work. But then it also kind of, you know, wasn't the Othello that Chris thought he was showing up to play by further othering him that way. So, you know, I could go on about Othello for so long. And the original question was, how do I feel about, you know, major productions being directed by women of color? And I'm like, that really stinks, and we should really fix that. And right now, in this moment of time, in 2020, if we're gonna continue to like wrestle with the play, I would love to see it interpreted by a Black man. That's what I'm actually really hungry for.
Thank you for that.
And now I've shared a little bit about all my Othello baggage, and I would love to turn it over to this tremendous company of actors and artists who have joined us today, and invite you all by way of introduction to tell us a little bit about your experience, history, love of, angst, frustration with Shakespeare's Othello. And I will just ask Franchelle Dorn to go first, because she's in the box immediately next to mine. So Fran, I turn it over to you.
Unmute myself first. That's always what I forget to do. Hi, I'm Fran Dorn. I won't tell you how long I've been acting or how old I am.
You have to turn your camera back on so we can see your beautiful face, though.
I have to do both those things? Okay, fine. Okay, all right. I have been in 3 productions of Othello. The first one was at ACT in San Francisco. I don't even remember what year. I played Bianca. The late John Hancock played Othello, and Danny Davis played Iago. My memory of that play is that it was a pretty good production. I actually remember Danny. You know, you tend to kind of remember the Iagos anyway. But Danny was a brilliant Iago. And as I recall, quite resentful that people disliked him. That is, people disliked Iago. But that's another story. The second production I did was at the Shakespeare Theater, the Folger, with Andre Brower and Avery Brooks. And that was an interesting one for me because Avery played Othello and Andre played Iago. And I thought it just was kind of brilliant. Harold Scott directed it, a Black guy. And that betrayal of an Iago of the same race was rather devastating, I thought, and wonderful. And the last production I did at the Shakespeare Theater was with Sir Patrick Stewart as Othello, with an all BIPOC cast otherwise. I'll leave it at saying that was an interesting Othello. And I'll just leave it there. Actually, Othello is one of my favorite plays. And Shakespeare is one of my favorite playwrights. I absolutely know that he had no intention of writing it this way, but I think the play speaks brilliantly to 2020 and racial issues that we have now, and men being cruel to women, and just all sorts of things that still resonate with us today. And I think that is his brilliance. That would be my interpretation, of course, but I see it there. There are lots of things in it that I find fascinating. One of them is, no matter how great a Black guy is, nobody wants him to marry their daughter. Yeah. No matter how great a Black guy is, there's some white guy who doesn't much do anything in the world who thinks he can compete with him and win. And the cruelty that both Iago and Othello treat the women in this play, and how they accept that. So I think it has a lot of resonances for 2020, and I'll leave it at that.
Great. Would love to hear from Keith.
I'm happy to be here. So thank you, first of all. You know, I've spent the last of several of these COVID months doing an exercise of trying to rewrite this play. It's just my exercise. I don't know where it's going to go. I tell people I'm trying to rewrite Shakespeare as if it were Eugene O'Neill, which means for the reader, it's rife with stage direction that explains how I think the characters behave, point for point, moment to moment. And I do that because I think this is one of Shakespeare's plays where he's fallen way short in the humanizing of these characters. They act in ways, in my perception, that is very inhuman, and it is their inhumanity that drives the plot. It's phony to me, and it's uncharacteristic of Shakespeare in general, in my experience. You know, they behave rather as characters in a bad horror film where they're doing things that advance the plot, but things that you and I would never do. So I thought I'd try and rectify that, and it's been interesting and revelatory. I dislike the play because it has been in my face for the past 30 years of my life, just by virtue of who I am. I dislike it immensely. But I have great concern and care for this character. So I am sort of driven by that in my continued explorations of the role and the play, and I'm eager to see where that ultimately goes before I die.
Wonderful.
That's what I got.
Thank you. Jennifer, I'd love to hear from you.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here also. Othello is one of the first plays of Shakespeare's that I read and studied when I was 15 years old in high school. And we worked on scenes I was in a Shakespeare class. There were no Black actors in the class. So a sort of swarthy, like tall white guy played Othello in the murder scene at the end, which was very uncomfortable. Even I love Shakespeare, and even though I've been very fortunate to perform and audition a lot of Shakespeare professionally, I've never had the opportunity to dive into Othello with a group of artists like you all. And I'm sure it's because I'm Asian. And the racial dynamics and everything become so much more complicated. And I sometimes I think that's a good thing, to complicate the dynamic even more because it's more honest. And other times I wonder, does it do a disservice to these people, this man, this character, who, like Keith, I feel like I care for. So yeah, I'm very excited to dive in with you all.
Great, thank you. Jessika.
I'm equally stoked to be here. For so many reasons. When I started studying Shakespeare as a kid, as a teenager, and I didn't have a whole kind of comprehensive view of the whole canon, and just knew that there was a Black character in the canon. I kind of decided at an early age that at some point I was going to play it. And kind of like understanding the plot, but I never really worked on the play. And I am currently playing Othello at the American Shakespeare Center. And so table working a play that I'm currently working on is something I've never done before. And I'm not worried about it. I'm really excited about it, especially because I get to do it with all of you guys, the people that I'm working with are great, but it's been a very, very tough experience. And it's the first thing I've ever done as an actor where I've actually struggled a lot in kind of wrangling my own emotions with the play and how we're doing the play. And I just think it's a really great opportunity to work with a whole bunch of people who have probably way more experience than I do with the play. And I feel like it's something that I'm probably going to be thinking about too for, the duration of my career and my life, because I also love it. I also think that the exploration of language, of kind of human emotion and psychology, is really, really on point at times. And then other times it's just kind of like, well, how does that happen? So I love that Keith, I love the idea of like putting in more stage directions and explanation of how these people behave. That isn't always in the language. But I do think that there's a lot of information in the language. And I think there might be a way to do this play. I don't know if right is the right word, but to reimagine it and re-explore it, not through the white gaze. And I don't know how many, I don't know if you guys have played Othello, but it's a pretty harrowing experience, actually. Just going out there and performing for a predominantly white house of people who are constantly delighted and infatuated with Iago, and hearing them laugh, when Othello is being tricked or has these moments or goes through his epileptic fit, and people are giggling and just loving it, and it's hard to not, and because of the nature of the way that we work at the American Shakespeare Center, the lights are on. We can see everyone. It's universal lighting. So there's there's socially distanced proximity now at this point, but you can feel the people in the room, and you can see their eyes and you can see their reactions, more so than in a kind of typical theater where you can't see the house at all. And you make connections with them. And some people are sitting in the house just shaking their head, like they want to get up and stop something, or they're just like, how could you possibly be doing this? Or you're so stupid, or, getting all of that feedback is a really interesting experience, and it's been really difficult. So I just feel really really honored to be in this Zoom room with you guys, and have a like support and perspective through a different gaze. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Peter, what about you?
Hey, everybody. I have mixed feelings about, well, no, I don't have mixed feelings about participating in this forum because I think that it's the only way that I'm going to continue my interrogation of this play, which I love and I hate vehemently. I will try not to be long-winded because I have a lot of experience. Well, I've played Othello 4 times, and I will say that Marion McClinton, rest in peace, was the only man of color, black man, American black man, fantastic actor first of all, and then fantastic director, who had never, at that point, at the Guthrie Theater, I think this was 2014, had never directed a Shakespeare play, had never had the opportunity to be, I don't know why, and certainly not Othello. This is a man who grew up with August Wilson. So I always tell people that I love Shakespeare because of what it allows, or what it demands of the actor, just physically. With the language, what it does, and then I put it in a comparison to August Wilson, because I think that August Wilson demands that same sort of, just tenacity. So I will say, so that was one experience. The first time I played the role was at OSF on Bill Rausch's first season, and it was in the outdoor theater, and Ashlyn Orkin is, very, very progressive, but also very, very white, racially limited. And stepping out on that stage, outdoor stage, that it was like 1,200 seat theater, and just having 1,200 what looked like white people staring into my soul was unnerving, because of what the play asks of the person playing that part. And it also asks of the audience to question their, it just turns a lot of things on its ear. And so in short, I'm sure we'll get into that, but the last time I was able to play it was in Dublin at the Abbey Theatre. And that was such a unique and refreshing experience, in that there was no need to fabricate the idea of other and being exotic. And because, as a Black American man in Dublin, Ireland, that's already there. And they had never, the Abbey Theatre, and I think 110 years of its history, had never had a Black American person play that role. I don't even think they had done it, but maybe once in that whole history. So it was interesting in that the guy, Marty Rea, who was from Northern Ireland, played Iago, and what that did to the Dublin audience, just because he chose to lay on thick, like a sort of Belfast, dialect choice, it automatically put that specific audience on a particular edge because of the conflict with Northern and Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland. And I found it to be culturally specific, and the play was able to land in this specific way, that it was specific to this particular audience. And then I was an outsider, so on one hand I was kind of invisible, but on the other hand I was exotified. But because Marty, and I feel like, playing this, it all depends on who's playing Iago, to give the play a chance. I too have been Well, because of Marty and his understanding of the strife between Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland and the UK, and just, it's a different like racial politics are just completely different, but yet they're very much the same. But this is so much more specific because of actual history and language and culture that's specific to Irish people, that's specific to Northern Irish people, that's specific to English people, as opposed to in America, which I would understand, where you see so many productions where it's in the antebellum South, and it's like, well, is this the play? I mean, you might as well do it on the moon, you know what I mean? But the play, and I'm always a stickler for doing the play. I'm not, but at the same time, I'm like, it does lend itself to concept and further exploration, which I think is why we're here. But I have been reading it, and I said to my wife, I was like, I think I need to do it again. And I had no intentions of ever wanting to play this part again, ever, because of what it asks, and 8 shows, 9 shows, 10 shows a week where you are, throwing an epileptic fit, and I have epileptic members of my family, and it's just exhausting. And then to what end? Do you know what I mean? At the end of to what end? What is the point? And so when we staged, the way we staged the production in Dublin was that we actually put seats, we put patrons on the stage, and then so it was about a 400 seat proscenium, and then they turned it into like a deep thrust, and so then we would have people with horrible seats in the very upper corners of the stage, far up stage, but they would get like these almost cinematic, we were able to play like these really small moments for just like a handful of people, and then the rest of the people would get what they get, and that created like this interesting dynamic as well. So I have been looking at this play again, either to maybe direct it. I'm just to kind of, I don't know if it's a get it out of my system thing, but there's something about my disappointment in the in this character, unlike Aaron in Titus Andronicus, where it's still fairly exotified, but the idea of sort of single-handedly trying to undo imperialism makes Aaron my favorite character in the canon, and the Scottish play being my favorite play in the canon, like the most whole play. But this play, it's so many holes, it's so many contradictory timelines. It's and so but then again, it's again, and I agree with you, Keith. It feels like someone who knew very little about we don't even know where Othello really is from. We don't know specifically, and that's, I'm sorry to say, that's fucked up, because it's like you can't have like this central character and build all of these things and have no cultural understanding of why the decisions are made. So it's a mishmash and like a bad pot of gumbo that's determines the truth of this character, and it's up to the actor to make decisions about what that truth is so that they can move forward. So again, love-hate relationship, but I think that it could be a great tool for discussion, and I'll just stop there because I'll go on forever, and I know there'll be one to talk. So
thank you, Peter. That's so rich. And Julie, I know you join us primarily as a playwright, so would love to hear a little bit about your perspective.
Yeah, hi from Australia, everyone. I've really encountered this play as an adult writing a response play to Othello for American Shakespeare Center. And the way that prize works is they invite contemporary playwrights to respond to a set of Shakespeare's plays. And I knew immediately that I wanted to respond to Othello because I was afraid of the play, because I felt, as a Thai Australian woman who is a sort of global mutt who's lived lots of places, who has always existed in sort of like cultural racial liminal spaces. What right do I have to engage with this play? Where do I fit in the history of this play? But also because I just come off the back of going to a Shakespeare conference, an overwhelmingly white Shakespeare conference with a bunch of Shakespeare academics, which are their own unique subculture, and feeling very acutely like an outsider, not just because I was an academic and I was suddenly surrounded by academics, but noticing how the colonial bedrock, or the sort of like white supremacist bedrock of this sort of European playwright was manifesting itself in the conference that I was attending, and the struggle of the very few scholars of color there to reclaim that discourse. So all of that felt, I was just coming off the back of that, so it felt like really rich terrain. And then, yeah, I started to write this play that was sort of partially about what it means to be an academic of color, dealing with a historically white discourse. And I'm part of the play set in the 19th century and is a sort of fantasia on the life of Ira Aldridge, one of the first Black actors to play Othello. And I didn't really know how those two parts of the play that I wrote corresponded, except that I knew that I couldn't really write a response play to Othello without engaging in the performance history of Othello. And there's a really excellent sort of 3-volume biography of Ira Aldridge's life that I was really moved by, because I felt that his life and his experience as a Black man playing Othello, being a poster child for the abolitionists across Europe, and the strange worlds that he straddled, being lauded as an actor and then the sort of vilified and the subject of so much racism. I just felt like his life and what he experienced, I saw echoes of that in what academics of color and performers of color were struggling with today. So yeah, that's really my relationship with the play. And yeah, and I'm really excited to get to delve into it more deeply, because I think when I was writing a response play to it, I also had to give myself some necessary distance from the play. So it will be good to go back and revisit it in sort of, yeah, more depth. So I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have a playwright in the room. Maddie, my dear, dear friend, we meet again. Yet another Shakespeare conversation.
Thanks, Dawn.
Lay it on us.
Be honest? Oh no. Hi everybody. I'm Maddie. I'm a citizen of the Mohegan tribe and also the executive director of the Yale Indigenous Performing Arts program, as well as a Shakespeare director and scholar. I will say that my personal relationship with Othello is I think not as deep as a lot of folks in this space. I've read AYANNA's work and I've heard Dawn speak about the play a lot, but within the canon, it's probably the play in some ways that I don't want to say I'm least familiar with, but I don't always seek out going to see it. I've probably seen 7 to 10 productions of it, but because of my personal relationship with the examination of Shakespeare as a weapon of white supremacy in this country, the fact that Shakespeare's plays are not from here, that the choice to perform them here is often a choice to uphold certain principles as opposed to interrogate them. I think that it should really only be being done, all of Shakespeare's plays should only be being done with conversations that grapple with the things in them the way that this conversation is right now. Yeah, so that's sort of, so I'm so grateful to be a part of this conversation, because if there was a way that I want to experience Othello, it would be with this group of people, really figuring out what's there and questioning it and interrogating it, instead of just letting it be another thing that another white artistic director thinks is neutral and thinks is high art and thinks can just put on a stage, right, as some sort of cultural good, which in fact it is not, unless it is being grappled with and examined. It can even do harm to the actors in it, which has come up in this conversation already. So so I'm just so grateful to be here, and I will go anywhere AYANNA and Dawn are leading any day. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Alfredo.
Hey, it's great to be here with everybody, as well as all of the unseen eyeballs that are here too. So I have never had the opportunity to do this play, but I've read it many times. I've seen it many times. It's interesting that Peter brought up August Wilson, because I was in undergrad around the time that August Wilson and Robert Brustein were having their sort of town hall debates about what they called at the time non-traditional casting or colorblind casting. We call inclusive casting now, and then also who is given the privilege to be considered a universal voice. And so it was interesting to me then to be in undergrad and then to see, white actors playing Othello around the time of those conversations. And so that, I'm just going to leave it at that, because I think it can open up some bigger questions from there. But it's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
Great, thank you. AYANNA, Dieris, I turn it back over to you as we launch into the reading.
Yes. Oh my God. If ever I thought this was a good idea, now I know, to have these amazing, smart people with all these rich experiences and varied experiences. But there's a lot for us to do. And so let's launch into the play. Dawn, is it true that you're reading the stage directions? And if you're following along, we're starting at the beginning.
Yes, it is true that I'm reading stage directions. And just so folks know, the casting will change each week. So you'll get a different taste of something every week. This week we have Anchuli reading Rodrigo, Peter reading Iago, Fran is reading Brabantio, Keith is reading Othello, Alfredo is reading Cassio, Jessica will read Officer and Desdemona, Maddie will read Duke and Montano, Jennifer will read Senator and Amelia, and I'm on stage directions. The Tragedy of Othello, the Moor of Venice. Enter Rodrigo and Iago.
Tush, never tell me, I take it much unkindly that thou, Iago, who hast had my purse, as if the strings were thine, shouldst know of this.
You're muted.
I know. Sorry. One more time.
You want me to start again?
Yes.
Great. Tush, never tell me. I take it much unkindly that thou, Iago, who hast had my purse, as if the strings were thine, shouldst know of this.
Blood, but you'll not hear me. If ever I did dream of such a matter, abhor me.
Thou toldst me thou didst hold him in thy hate.
Despise me if I do not. 3 great ones of the city in personal suit to him, in personal suit to make me his lieutenant, off cap to him. And by the faith of man, I know my place. I am worth no worse a place. But he, as loving his own pride and purposes, evades them with bombast circumstances horribly stuffed with epithets of war. And in conclusion, none suits my mediators. For certes, says he, I have already chose my officer. And what was he? Forsooth, a great arithmetician, one Michael Cassio, a Florentine. Fellow almost damned in a fair wife that never set a squadron in the field nor the division of battle knows, more than a spinster, unless the bookish theoric wherein the togged consuls can propose as masterly as he. Mere prattle without practice is all his soldiership. But he, sir, had the election, and I, of whom his eyes had seen the proof at Rose, at Cyprus, and on other grounds, Christian and heathen, must be lead and calmed by debitor and creditor. This countercaster, he, in good time, must his lieutenant be, and I, God bless the mark, his moorship's ancient.
By heaven, I rather would have been his hangman.
Why, there's no remedy. 'Tis the curse of service. Preferment goes by letter and affection, and not by old gradation, where each second stood heir to the first. Now, sir, be judge yourself whether I in any just term am a fine to love the more.
I would not follow him then.
Oh, sir, content you. I follow him to serve my turn upon him. We cannot all be masters, nor all masters cannot be truly followed. You shall mark many a duteous and knee-crooking knave that, doting on his own obsequious bondage, wears out his time much like his master's ass, for naught but provender, and when he's old, cashiered, whip me such honest knaves. Others there are who, trimmed in forms and visages of duty, keep yet their hearts attending on themselves, and throwing but shows of service on their lords, do well thrive by them, and when they have lined their coats, do themselves homage. These fellows have some soul, and such a one do I profess myself. For, sir, it is as sure as you are Roderigo. Were I the Moor, I would not be Iago. In following him, I follow but myself. Heaven is my judge, not I for love and duty, but seeming so for my particular end. For when my outward action doth demonstrate the native act and figure of my heart in complexment extern, 'tis not long after but I will wear my heart upon my sleeve for daws to peck at. I am not what I am.
What a full fortune does the thick lips owe if he can carry it thus.
Call up her father, rouse him, make after him, poison his delight, proclaim him in the streets, incense her kinsmen.
Here is her father's house, I'll call aloud.
You, with like timorous accent and dire yell, as when by night and negligence the fire is spied in populous cities.
What ho! Brabantio, Signor Brabantio, ho!
Awake! What ho, Brabantio! Thieves! 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 Look to your house, your daughter, and your bags. Thieves! Thieves!
Brabantio appears above at a window.
What is the reason of this terrible summons? What is the matter there?
Signor, is all your family within?
Are your doors locked?
Why? Wherefore ask you this?
Zoons, sir, you're robbed. For shame, put on your gown. Your heart is burst. You have lost half your soul, even now, very now. An old black ram is tupping your white ewe. Arise, arise! Awake the snorting citizens with the bell, or else the devil will make a grandsire of you. Arise, I say.
What? Have you lost your wits?
Most Reverend Signor, do you know my voice?
Not I. What are you?
My name is Roderigo.
The worse are welcome. I have charged thee not to haunt about my doors. In honest plainness, thou hast heard me say, my daughter is not for thee. And now, in madness, being full of supper and distempering draughts, upon malicious bravery, dost thou come to start my quiet?
Sir.
What tell'st thou me of robbing? This is Venice. My house is not a grange.
Zoons, sir. You are one of those that will not serve God if the devil bid you. Because we come to do you service, and you think we are ruffians, you'll have your daughter covered with a Barbary horse. You'll have your nephews neigh to you. You'll have coursers for cousins and jennets for Germans.
What profane wretch art thou?
I am one, sir, that comes to tell you your daughter and the Moor are now making the beast with two backs.
Thou art a villain.
You are a senator.
This thou shalt answer. I know thee, Roderigo.
Sir, I will answer anything, but I beseech you, if to be your pleasure and most wise consent, as partly I find it is, that your fair daughter, at this odd even and dull watch of the night, transported with no worse nor better guard, but with a knave of common hire, a gondolier, to the gross class of the lascivious Moor. If this be known to you in your allowance, we then have done you bold and saucy wrongs. Your daughter, if you have not given her leave, I say again, hath made a gross revolt, tying her duty, beauty, wit, and fortunes in an extravagant and wheeling stranger of here and everywhere. Straight satisfy yourself. If she be in her chamber or your house, let loose on me the justice of the state for thus deluding you.
Strike on the tinder. Ho, give me a taper. Call up all my people. This accident is not unlike my dream. Belief of it oppresses me already. Light, I say, light.
Exit above.
Farewell. For I must leave you. It seems not meet nor wholesome to my place to be produced, as if I stay I shall against the Moor, for I do know the state. though I do hate him, as I do hell pains, yet for necessity of present life, I must show out a flag and sign of love, which is indeed but a sign. That you shall surely find him, lead to the Sagittary, the raised search, and there will I be with him. So, farewell.
Exit. Enter Brabantio in his nightgown and servants with torches.
It is too true and evil, gone she is, and what's to come of my despised time is naught but bitterness. Now, Rodrigo, where didst thou see her? Oh, unhappy girl, with the Moor, sayest thou? Who would be a father? How didst thou know 'twas she? Oh, she deceives me past thought. What said she to you? Get more tapers, raise all my kindred. Are they married, think you?
Truly, I think they are.
Oh, heaven, how got she out? Oh, treason of the blood. Fathers, from hence trust not your daughters' minds by what you see them act. Is there not charms by which the property of youth and maidhood may be abused? Have you not read, Rodrigo, of such a thing?
Yes, sir, I have indeed.
Call up my brother. Oh, would you had had her. Some one way, some another. Do you know where we may apprehend her in the moor?
I think I can discover him, if you please, to get good guard and go along with me.
Pray you lead on. At every house I'll call. I may command at most. Get weapons, ho! And raise some special officers of night. On, good Rodrigo, I'll deserve your pains.
Exeunt. Act 1, Scene 2. Enter Othello, Iago, and attendants with torches.
Though in the trade of war I have slain men, yet I do hold it the very stuff of the conscience to do no contrived murder. I lack inequity sometimes to do me service. 9 or 10 times I had thought of yerked him here under the ribs.
It is better as it is.
Hey, but he prated and spoke such scurvy and provoking terms against your honor, that with the little godliness I have, I did full hard forbear him. But I pray, sir, are you fast married? Be assured of this, that the Magnifico is much beloved and hath in his effect a voice potential as double as the Duke's. He will divorce you or put upon you what restraint or grievance the law with all his might to enforce it on will give him cable.
Let him do his spite. My services which I have done the Signory shall out-tongue his complaints. 'Tis yet to know, which when I know that boasting is an honor, I shall promulgate. I fetch my life and being from men of royal siege, and my demerits may speak unbonneted to as proud a fortune as this that I have reached. For know, Iago, but that I love the gentle Desdemona, I would not my unhoused free condition put into circumscription and confined for the sea's worth. But look, what lights come yond?
Enter Cassio with officers and torches.
Those are the raised father and his friends. You were best go in.
Not I must be found. My parts, my title, and my perfect soul shall manifest me rightly. Is it day?
My Janus, I think no.
And the servants of the Duke and my lieutenant. The goodness of the night upon you, friends. What's the news?
The Duke does greet you, General, and he requires your post-haste appearance, even on the instant.
What's the matter, think you?
Something from Cyprus, as I may divine. It is a business of some heat. The Senate hath sent about 3 several quests to search you out.
It is well I am found by you. I will but spend a minute here in the house and go with you.
Exit.
Ancient, what makes he here?
Faith, he tonight hath boarded a land carrack. If it prove lawful prize, he's made forever.
I do not understand.
He's married.
To whom?
Married to... Come, Captain, will you go?
I'm with you.
Here comes another troop to seek for you.
It is Brabantio, General. Be advised, he come to bad intent.
Hot, stand there.
Signor, it is the Moor.
Down with him, thief.
You, Rodrigo, come, sir. I am for you.
Keep up your bright swords, for the dew will rust them. Good senior, you shall more command with your years than with your weapons.
Oh, thou foul thief. Where hast thou stowed my daughter? Damned as thou art, thou hast enchanted her, for I'll refer me to all things of sense. If she in chains of magic were not bound, whether a maid so tender, fair and happy, so opposite to marriage, that she shunned the wealthy curled darlings of our nation, would ever have to incur a general mock, run from her guardage to the sooty bosom of such a thing as thou, to fear, not to delight. Judge me the world, if it is not gross incense, thou hast practiced on her with foul charms, abused her delicate youth with drugs or minerals that weakens motion. I'll have it disputed on, 'tis probable and palpable to thinking. I therefore apprehend and do attach thee for an abuser of the world, a practicer of arts inhibited and out of warrant. Lay hold upon him. If he do resist, subdue him at his peril.
Hold your hands, both you of my inclining and the rest. Were it my cue to fight, I should have known it without a prompter. Where will you that I go to answer this your charge?
To prison, till fit time of law and course of direct session call thee to answer.
And what if I do obey? How may the Duke be therewith satisfied, whose messengers are here about my side, upon some present business of the state, to bring me to him?
'Tis true, most worthy Signor. The Duke's in council and your noble self, I'm sure, is sent for.
How, the Duke in council? In this time of the night? Bring him away. Mine's not an idle cause. The Duke himself, or any of my brothers of the state, cannot but feel this wrong as 'twere their own. For if such actions may have passage free, bond slaves and pagans shall our statesmen be.
Exeunt. Act 1, Scene 3. Enter Duke and senators set at a table with lights in attendance. Enter Brabantio, Othello, Cassio, Iago, Roderigo, and officers.
Valiant Othello, we must straight employ you against the general enemy Ottoman. I did not see you. Welcome, gentle signor. We lacked your counsel and your help tonight.
So did I yours. Good your grace pardon me. Neither my place nor aught I heard of business hath raised me from my bed, nor doth the general care take hold on me. For my particular grief is of so floodgate and o'erbearing nature that it engluts and swallows other sorrows, and it is still itself.
Why? What's the matter?
Oh, my daughter. Oh, my daughter.
Dead?
Aye, to me. She is abused, stolen from me and corrupted by spells and medicines bought of mountebanks. For nature so preposterously to err, being not deficient, blind, or lame of sense, sans witchcraft could not.
Whoe'er he be that in this foul proceeding hath thus beguiled your daughter of herself, and you of her, the bloody book of law, you shall yourself read in the bitter letter after your own sense. Yea, though our proper son stood in your action.
Humbly I thank your grace. Here is the man, this Moor, whom now it seems your special mandate for the state affairs hath hither brought.
What in your own part can you say to this?
Nothing, but this is so.
Most potent, grave, and reverend seniors, my very noble and approved good masters, that I have ta'en away this old man's daughter, it is most true. True, I have married her. The very head and front of my offending hath this extent, no more. Rude am I in my speech, and little blessed with the soft phrase of peace. For since these arms of mine had 7 years' pith, till now some 9 moons wasted, they have used their dearest action in the tented field. And little of this great world can I speak, more than pertains to feats of broil and battle, and therefore little shall I grace my cause in speaking for myself. Yet by your gracious patience, I will a round, unvarnished tale deliver of my whole course of love. What drugs, what charms, what conjurations, and what mighty magic, for such proceeding am I charged withal, I won his daughter.
A maiden never bold, of spirit so still and quiet that her motion blushed at herself, and she, in spite of nature, of years, of country, credit, everything, to fall in love with what she feared to look on? It is a judgment maimed and most imperfect that will confess perfection so could err against all rules of nature, and must be driven to find out practices of cunning hell why this should be. I therefore vouch again that with some mixtures powerful o'er the blood, or with some dram conjured to this effect, he wrought upon her.
To vouch this is no proof. Without more certain and more overt test than these thin habits and poor likelihoods of modern seeming do prefer against him.
But Othello, speak. Did you, by indirect and forced courses, subdue and poison this young maid's affections? Or came it by request and such fair question as soul to soul affordeth?
I do beseech you, send for the lady to the Sagittary and let her speak of me before her father, if you do find me foul in her report. The trust, the office I do hold of you, not only take away, but let your sentence even fall upon my life.
Fetch Desdemona hither.
Ancient, conduct them, you best know the place. Until she come, as truly as to heaven, I do confess the vices of my blood. So justly to your grave ears, I'll present how I do thrive in this fair lady's love, and she in mine.
Say it, Othello.
Her father loved me, oft invited me. Still questioned me the story of my life from year to year, the battles, sieges, fortunes that I have passed. I ran it through even from my boyish days to the very moment that he bade me tell it. Wherein I spake of most disastrous chances, of moving accidents by flood and field, of hair's breadth escapes in the imminent deadly breach, of being taken by the insolent foe and sold to slavery, of my redemption thence, and portents in my travailous history, wherein of antres vast and deserts idle, rough quarries, rocks and hills whose heads touch heaven, it was my hint to speak. Such was the process. And of the cannibals that each other eat, the anthropophagi and men whose heads do grow beneath their shoulders. This to hear would Desdemona seriously incline. But still the house affairs would draw her thence, which ever as she could with haste dispatch, come again, and with a greedy ear devour up my discourse, which I, observing, took once a pliant hour, and found good means to draw from her a prayer of earnest heart that I would all my pilgrimage dilate, whereof by parcels she had something heard, but not intentively. I did consent, and often did beguile her of her tears when I did speak of some distressful stroke that my youth suffered. My story being done, she gave me for my pains a world of sighs. She swore in faith 'twas strange, 'twas passing strange, 'twas pitiful, 'twas wondrous pitiful. She wished she had not heard it, yet she wished that heaven had made her such a man. She thanked me and bade me, if I had a friend that loved her, I should but teach him how to tell my story, and that would woo her. Upon this hint I spake. She loved me for the dangers I had passed, and I loved her that she did pity them. This only is the witchcraft I have used. Here comes the lady. Let her witness it.
I think this tale would win my daughter too. Good Brabantio, take up this mangled matter at the best. Men do their broken weapons rather use than their bare hands.
I pray you, hear her speak. If she confess that she was half the wooer, destruction on my head if my bad blame light on the man. Come hither, gentle mistress. Do you perceive in all this noble company where most you owe obedience?
My noble father, I do perceive here a divided duty. To you I am bound for life and education, my life and education, both to learn me how to respect you. You are the lord of duty. I am hitherto your daughter. But here's my husband. And so much duty as my mother showed to you, preferring you before her father, So much I challenge that I may profess due to the Moor, my lord.
God be with you. I have done. Please it your grace, on to the state affairs. I had rather adopt a child than get it. Come hither, Moor. I here do give thee that with all my heart, which, but thou hast already, with all my heart I would keep from thee. For your sake, jewel, I am glad at soul I have no other child, for thy escape would teach me tyranny to hang clogs on them. I have done, my lord.
Let me speak like yourself and lay a sentence, which as a grace or step may help these lovers into your favor. To mourn a mischief that is past and gone is the next way to draw new mischief on.
So let the Turk of Cyprus us beguile. We lose it not as long as we can smile. I humbly beseech you, proceed to the affairs of state.
The Turk with the most mighty preparation makes for Cyprus. Othello, the fortitude of the place is best known to you. And though we have there a substitute of most allowed sufficiency, yet opinion, a sovereign mistress of effects, throws a more safer voice on you. You must therefore be content to slubber the gloss of your new fortunes with this more stubborn and boisterous expedition.
The tyrant custom, most grave senators, hath made the flinty and steel couch of war my thrice-driven bed of down. I do acknowledge a natural and prompt alacrity I find in hardness, and do undertake these present wars against the Ottomites. Most humbly, therefore, bending to your state, I crave fit disposition for my wife, due reverence of place and exhibition, with such accommodation and besort as levels with her breeding.
Why, at her father's.
I'll not have it.
Nor I.
Nor would I there reside to put my father in impatient thoughts by being in his eye. Most gracious Duke, to my unfolding, lend your prosperous ear, and let me find a charter in your voice to assist my simpleness.
What would you, Desdemona?
That I did love the more to live with him. My downright violence and scorn of fortunes may trumpet to the world. My heart subdued even to the very quality of my lord. I saw Othello's visage in his mind, and to his honors and his valiant parts did I my soul and fortunes consecrate, so that, dear lords, if I be left behind, go to the war. The rights for which I love him are bereft me, and I a heavy interim shall support by his dear absence. Let me go with him.
Let her have your voice. Vouch with me, heaven. I therefore beg it not to please the palate of my appetite, nor to comply with heat, the young effects in me defunct and proper satisfaction, but to be free and bounteous to her mind. And heaven defend your good souls that you think I will your serious and great business scant when she is with me. No, when light-winged toys of feathered Cupid seal with wanton dullness my speculative and officed instrument, that my disports corrupt and taint my business. Let huswives make a skillet of my helm, and all indign and base adversities make head against my estimation.
Be it as you shall privately determine, either for her stay or going. The affair cries haste, and speed must answer it.
You must away tonight.
Tonight, my lord.
This night.
With all my heart.
At 9 in the morning here we'll meet again. Othello, leave some officer behind, and he shall our commission bring to you, and such things else of quality and respect as doth import you.
So please your grace, my ancient, a man he is of honesty and trust. To his conveyance I assign my wife, with what else needful your good grace shall think to be sent after me.
Let it be so. Good night to everyone, and noble signor. If virtue no delighted beauty lack, your son-in-law is far more fair than black.
Adieu, brave Moor. Use Desdemona well.
Look to her, Moor, if thou hast eyes to see. She has deceived her father, and made thee.
My life upon her faith. Honest Iago, my Desdemona must I leave to thee. I pray thee, let thy wife attend on her, and bring them after in the best advantage. Come, Desdemona. I have but an hour of love, of worldly matter and direction to spend with thee. We must obey the time
Exit.
Iago,
What sayst thou, noble heart?
what will I do, thinkst thou?
I go to bed and sleep.
I will incontinently drown myself.
Oh, villainess! I have looked upon the world for 4 times 7 years, and since I could distinguish betwixt a benefit and an injury, I never found a man that knew how to love himself. Ere I would say I would drown myself for the love of a guinea hen, I would change my humanity with a baboon.
What should I do? I confess it is my shame to be so fond, but it is not in my virtue to amend it.
Virtue? A fig! 'Tis in ourselves that we are thus or thus. Our bodies are gardens, to the which our wills are gardeners. It is merely a lust of the blood and a permission of the will. Come, be a man. Drown thyself. Drown cats and blind puppies. I have professed me thy friend, and I confessed me knit to thy deserving with cables of perdurable toughness. I could never better stead thee than now. Put money in thy purse. Follow thou the wars. Defeat thy favor with a usurped beard. I say, put money in thy purse. It cannot be that Desdemona should long continue her love to the Moor. Put money in thy purse, nor he his to her. It was a violent commencement in her, and thou shalt see an answerable sequestration. Put but money in thy purse. These Moors are changeable in their wills. Fill thy purse with money. The food that to him now is as luscious as locusts shall be to him shortly. The food that is to him now is as luscious as locusts shall be to him shortly, as acerb as coloquintida. She must change for youth. When she is sated with his body, she will find the error of her choice. She must have changed. She must. Therefore, put money in thy purse. If thou wilt needs damn thyself, do it in a more delicate way than drowning. Make all the money thou canst. If sanctimony and a frail vow betwixt an erring barbarian and a super subtle Venetian be not too hard for my wits, in all the tribe of hell thou shalt enjoy her. Therefore make money. Pox of drowning thyself. Is clean out of the way. Seek thou rather to be hanged in encompassing the joy than to be drowned and go without her. Go to. Farewell. Do you hear, Rodrigo? No more of drowning. Do you hear?
I am changed. I'll sell all my land.
Go to. Farewell. Put money enough in their purse. Thus do I ever make my fool my purse. For I mine own gained knowledge should profane if I would time expend with such a snipe, but for my sport and profit. I hate the Moor. And it is thought abroad that twixt my sheets he has done my office. I know not if it be true, but I, for mere suspicion in that kind, will do as if for surety. He holds me well. The better shall my purpose work on him. Cassio's a proper man. Let me see now. To get his place and to plume up my will in double knavery. How? How? Let's see. After some time to abuse Othello's ear that he is too familiar with his wife. He has the person and a smooth disposed to be suspected, framed to make women false. The Moor is of a free and open nature that thinks men honest, that but seem to be so, and will as tenderly be led by the nose as asses are. Have it. It is engendered. Hell and night must bring this monstrous birth to the world's light.
Exit. Act 2, Scene 1, enter Montano and Cassio.
News, Cassio! Our wars are done. The desperate tempest hath so banged the Turks that their designment halts. A noble ship of Venice hath seen a grievous wrack and sufferance on most part of their fleet.
Thanks, you, the valiant of this warlike isle, that so approve the Moor. Oh, let the heavens give him defense against the elements, for I have lost him on a dangerous sea.
But, good lieutenant, is your general wived?
Most fortunately, he hath achieved a maid that paragons description and wild frame, one that excels the quirks of blazoning pens, and in the essential vesture of creation does tire the engineer. The divine Desdemona.
What is she?
She that I spake of, our great captain's captain, left in the conduct of the bold Iago, whose footing here anticipates our thoughts a 7-night speed. Great Jove, Othello, guard and swell his sail with thine own powerful breath, that he may bless this bay with his tall ship, make love's quick pants in Desdemona's arms, give renewed fire to our extincted spirits, and bring all Cyprus comfort. Oh, behold, the riches of the ship is come on shore. You men of Cyprus, let her have your knees. Hail to thee, lady, and the grace of heaven, before, behind thee, and on every hand, and wheel thee round.
I thank you, valiant Cassio. What tidings can you tell me of my lord?
He is not yet arrived, nor know I aught but that he's well, and will be shortly here.
Oh, but I fear, how lost you company?
The great contention of the sea and skies parted our fellowship. Good ancient, you are welcome. Welcome, mistress. Let it not gall your patience, good Iago, that I extend my manners. 'Tis my breeding that gives me this bold show of courtesy.
Oh, sir, would she give you so much of her lips as of her tongue she oft bestows on me, you'd have enough.
Alas, she has no speech.
In faith, too much. I find it still when I have list to sleep. Mary, before your ladyship, I grant she puts her tongue a little in her heart and chides with thinking.
You have little cause to say so.
Come on, you are pictures out of doors. Bells in your parlors, wildcats in your kitchens, saints in your injuries, devils being offended, players in your housewifery, and housewives in your beds.
Oh, fie upon thee, slanderer.
Hey, it is true, or else I am a Turk. You rise to play and go to bed to work.
You shall not write my praise.
No, let me not. He took me by the palm. Aye, well said. Whisper. With as little a web as this will I ensnare as great a fly as Cassio. I smile upon her. Do. I will give thee in thine own, I will jive thee in thine own courtesies. You say, true, 'tis so indeed. If such tricks as these strip you out of your lieutenantry, it had been better you had not kissed your 3 fingers so oft, which now again you are most apt to play the sir in. Very good, well kissed, and excellent courtesy. 'Tis so indeed. Yet again your fingers to your lips. Would they were clyster pipes for your sake. The Moor! I know his trumpet.
'Tis truly so.
Let's meet him and receive him.
Lo, where he comes.
Oh, my fair warrior.
Oh, my dear Othello.
It gives me wonder great as my content to see you here before me. Oh, my soul's joy. If after every tempest come such calms, may the winds blow till they have wakened death, and let the laboring bark climb hills of seas, Olympus high, and duck again as low as hells from heaven. If it were now to die, 'Twere now to be most happy, for I fear my soul hath a content so absolute that not another comfort like to this succeed in unknown fate.
The heavens forbid, but that our loves and comforts should increase even as our days do grow.
Amen to that, sweet powers. I cannot speak enough of this content. It stops me here. It is too much of joy. And this, the greatest discords be that e'er our hearts shall make.
You are well tuned now, but I'll set down the pegs that make this music, as honest as I am.
Come, let us to the castle. News, friends! Our wars are done. The Turks are drowned. How does my old acquaintance of this isle? Honey, you shall be well desired in Cyprus. I have found great love amongst them. Oh, my sweet, I prattle out of fashion, and I dote in mine own comforts. I prithee, good Iago, go thou to the bay and disembark my coffers. Bring thou the master to the citadel. He is a good one, and his worthiness does challenge much respect. Come, Desdemona, once more, well met at Cyprus.
Do thou meet me presently at the harbor. Come hither. First, I must tell thee this. Desdemona is directly in love with him.
With him? Why, 'tis not possible.
Lay thy fingers thus, and let thy soul be instructed. Mark me, with what violence she first loved the more, but for bragging and telling her fantastical lies, and she will love him still for prating? Let not thy discreet heart think it. Her eye must be fed, and what delight what shall she have to look on the devil? When the blood is made dull with the act of sport, there should be, again, to inflame it and to give it satiety and fresh appetite, loveliness and favor, sympathy in years, manners and beauties, all which the Moor is defective in. Now, for want of these required conveniences, her delicate tenderness will find itself abused, begin to heave the gorge, disrelish and abhor the Moor. Very nature will instruct her in it and compel her to some second choice. Now, sir, this granted, as it is a most pregnant and unforced position, who stands so eminent in the degree of this fortune as Cassio does?
We'll pause right there for this session. Thank you all so much. Such great read, friends.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
I also love, I think, Fran, you should be Brabantio, clearly. Peter, what was it like reading Iago? It seemed like your mouth didn't want to go there.
Well, I mean, it's not as well, I'm used to hearing it, but it was actually kind of fun, but just fun actorly wise, but at the same time, my stomach is just full of bile. But you know, I've never, I've thought about it a couple times. I'm like, oh, it'd be fun to play Iago, but like now, like it just opens up a broader conversation. And, you know, just initially, it's such great writing. That it's just fun to say. So,
I mean, I think this gets at part of what several of you were talking about, the love-hate relationship with this play, that it is beautiful, like amazing writing and hard, like challenging and like great to build up your chops, but also then filled with, you know, sort of reprehensible content as well.
Yeah, but you can't.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that one of the greatest things about this role is that he doesn't think that he is he doesn't think that he's as psychotic as he is, which is the thing with serial killers that lack an empathy gene. And like I just think that there's, I mean, in the best, not the best, but like when you can feel something for this guy, I think that's you're definitely, you know, on the roller coaster ride to hell, which is great, which is what you want to do is you know, and his language is so specific that you're compelled to be drawn in.
Yeah. And Jessica said this is a very different part to be Desdemona. You're used to being Othello. So how is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like it's just a gift to hear other people say these words right now, you know, because when you do a production so often and you kind of get into a rhythm and there's still always exploration going on, it's just really nice to hear it, I don't know, come out of a man's voice right now. And as far as Desdemona is concerned, you know, it's I don't really get to play a lot of female roles here at the American Shakespeare Center. I play a lot of men, so it's kind of delightful to have a little bit of a turn. And you know, I wonder a lot about that relationship, and how having traditionally a white woman play it, you know, what changes the dynamic when you have a woman of color play it, you know, and it's so fascinating. So like I told this story in our rehearsal process. My mom and dad, my dad passed away in October last year, but mixed race couple, got married back in the day. And my father, or my grandfather, like basically disowned my mom after she married my dad, you know, like didn't show up to the wedding. And I think she saw him one more time before he passed away. And it was when he was ill and she went to go visit him. And my dad drove my mom to Glendale. And at the time it was like, you know, people of color couldn't go past the train tracks after 10 p.m. So he had to wait on the other side of the neighborhood until my mom came back from visiting her dying father. And, you know, it's just a really, that relationship between Desdemona and Brabantio and him just kind of like cutting her off. And, you know, it's interesting. And I love that little piece of text that she has, you know, about her duty as a daughter and her duty as a wife. And then I always find it really fascinating that she chooses to call Othello the Moor as opposed to by his first name, you know? And so like, where does she fit in this? And how does that relationship change when she's not a rich white girl?
Yeah. Dieris, I feel like you now need to give us the questions from the audience.
Yes, we have some great questions. So I'll go ahead and make one of them live now. And this one is from Gary Walton, and we had a lot of our viewers who were very interested in the introduction or the discussion before the reading, so we'll just kind of start there. And this one by Gary Walton says, I hear Keith, Jessica, and Peter all talking about their dissatisfaction with what the script allows the actor to say and do, and the audience that understand their perspective. I would love to hear each of them talk more about that frustration and delve into it more.
Okay.
So that
Keith?
goes to Keith, Jessica, and Peter.
Okay, Keith?
Well, I guess it's in simplest terms, not to take a lot of time, and the difficult part is talking about any of this and not running out the clock because there's so much to say. But in simplest terms, the frustration for me is born in not being able to explore aspects of this character, the one that I would ultimately be playing most of the time, as human, finding the humanity, or if I'm finding it through the lens of a white director and a white structure that empowers that director. You know, a white theater, white donors, white board of directors. So what ultimately comes down to me is, you know, it's ultimately going to be that lens, and I'm not free to speak up about all the things that I think that this character is. In this particular instance, you know, I'm very interested in showing Othello's flaws immediately. What you might not even call them flaws, but his strength and power born of his need to navigate the current circumstances however he sees them. You know, I think he's probably got PTSD. I think he's a big angry man from the jump. And maybe meeting this woman is something that, at least on the surface, has given him a sense of calm that people mistake, that he himself might mistake as love. But in these introductory scenes, that we're looking at a killer from the very beginning. It's not that something snaps later on and he becomes one. He's
a mercenary.
He's a mercenary from the jump. His job is to answer things with power and might and his fists, you know, from the very start.
Yeah, and in experiencing it like right now, and it feels different coming at it from as a female. I'm not necessarily playing a man. We're kind of embracing the androgyny and the otherness of the feminine parts of me. So and I totally agree with everything that Keith just said. What I find fascinating is, like, as an actor, when you don't get all of the given circumstances, like in the play, which you don't, you get a lot of your stage directions, your physicality and everything from the text in Shakespeare and the cues and the way that the meter breaks or doesn't break. And, which leaves it open to a lot of interpretation, so being able to, as Jessika, justify the journey that I would like to go on, and I would like to, that I do feel like the text supports. I don't feel like there's enough, like there's like little clues in there that I'm like, okay, this is a through line, particularly with him having PTSD, right? Particularly with, like, there's an indication that he's been at war, for a very, very long time, except for the last 9 months when he got with Desdemona. And it's like, I think about people who come back, I keep doing this comparison of, like, when people come back from serving and they go to the grocery store and they buy a carton of milk and just like freak out, like something, like people being able to snap just like that. And I feel like that really supports a lot of Othello's journey. And I struggle with that. I wish there was more text to inform the audience where it is that he's coming from and what he's going through. You have that beautiful speech in the first part of the play about his journey. And I just, parts of me wish that there was more to support that, so the audience can get a larger grasp on the kind of person that they might be dealing with. And it's hard to.
Let me ask everyone, though, because I think this is a great point, Jessika, but is he meant to be a fully developed person in the text?
Why not? Why wouldn't he be? And I feel like, and not to cut you off, because I want to jump on what Jessika was saying, the frustration comes from knowing or feeling like this character, like this monumentally complex character, was written without the basic fundamental building blocks of every other character almost in the canon, which says to me that this guy, William Shakespeare, didn't know what the fuck he was talking about, didn't know what he was writing about. And so he just guessed and put these things together, which further pours gasoline on our perceptions of other. And that is deeply, deeply frustrating, to try to make up your own theory and backstory of, like, how, and it's
what kind of mental calculus does the actor of color have to perform to pretzel him or herself into the role, right? Because, as you say, like, if it's not there and you're trying to make it be there, like, that's crazy.
And it's also not trying to reify or just continue the notion and the perception of the big black Bucky brute. Do you know what I mean? Like, and because the war, love and war have very little place for each other. Like, it's, love in the context of war. That's one huge red flag, that like the man is distracted. He hasn't, since he was 5 before, because there is information in the play about, his mother gave him this handkerchief and when he's 5, and then since he was 7 years old, he's been embroiled in battle. And what does that mean? And he's all like beat up and scarred up, because if you're in this time living by the sword, you're getting hacked, you have scars, you're beat up. And so when I played it one time, I had half my ear was gone. And so just make this statement about, like, this is what war looks like from 7 years old, to having never been in love and never even understanding love. Sure, brothels, whatever, but have someone in the midst of Venice, fall, and see you potentially as a person when you're actually a mercenary with, and that's so convenient that he's a mercenary and not connected to any particular culture, because you could go and be fighting against people that look exactly like you for a city-state of Venice. And the reason why they hired these people like Othello, these mercenaries, because they were tired of getting their asses kicked by them. And so they said, instead of fighting against you, we will hire you to fight our war. So then you have that whole other complexity thrown into the text, where he's fighting his own people, or I guess people that look like him, or people in that region. And so without any sort of, like, And that's what makes me angry, because there's no sense of like, we understand what we're asking this, like the playwright understanding what he's asking that character to do, and just dismiss him as this war machine, right? And so that's me.
So we're going to actually have to end on your But guess what? We're coming back 3 more times every Wednesday in October. We know we only started to scratch the surface. We know we didn't have enough time for questions, but we're coming back. So we hope to see you all next Wednesday when we'll continue the reading and the discussion. We got a lot more to cover. Thank you all.
Great job.